Around a flickering campfire deep in the woods, a weathered hunter breaks years of silence to tell his friends a story he swore he'd never speak aloud. It started with a hunt gone wrong, a vanished companion, and a presence in the trees that wasn't quite animal or human. As the fire cracks and the shadows lean in, the hunter reveals a slow burning nightmare, one that didn't end in the forest, but followed him home, wearing familiar voices, old memories, and eventually his own reflection. With every chapter, the story turns more personal, more horrifying, until the boundary between tale and warning starts to blur. Because something is still out there, watching, waiting. And now, it knows you're listening. It knows your scent. It knows your voice. And when it calls your name, don't answer. Welcome to Sunday Scares, where the shadows whisper and nightmares come to life. But did you know that 96% of you watching aren't subscribed? If you love chilling tales that keep you up at night, hit like to feed the darkness, and subscribe if you dare. Now turn off the lights, settle in, and let the horror begin. You boys ever hear a sound that just didn't belong? I ain't talking about the usual noises you get out here. Twigs snapping, critters rustling in the underbrush. Maybe a coyote barking way off in the distance. No. I mean a sound that worms its way straight down your spine. A sound that makes every hair on your arm stand up stiff, tells you something out there ain't natural. That's how it started for me. 15, maybe 16 years ago now. Up north near Wolf Creek. About 10, 12 miles from where we're sitting tonight. It was supposed to be a simple hunt. Me and my buddy Jess took a few days off work, loaded up the truck, drove deep into the woods. November chill in the air. That time of year when the trees stand naked and the nights get mean. We were after a buck Jess had spotted a week before. Claimed it was the biggest damn thing he'd ever laid eyes on. Swore up and down it was a trophy buck, antlers wide as a man's outstretched arms. Jess was obsessed. Wouldn't shut up about it the whole ride out. We made camp in a little clearing, tight to the tree line, nothing fancy. 2 tents, a ring of stones for the fire, some logs dragged over for sitting. I remember Jess trying to fry up a can of Spam in this busted old skillet, swearing under his breath because he kept losing pieces into the flames. We laughed, passed a bottle back and forth, talked about nothing important. The woods were loud that night, frogs croaking near the creek, wind hissing through the pines, normal sounds, comforting sounds, until they weren't. It was maybe round 11 when it changed. We were sitting close to the fire, trying to squeeze out the last bit of warmth before calling it a night, when we heard it. Off in the trees. It sounded kind of like a coyote, but wrong. Too deep. Too wet, if that makes any sense. Like a dog choking on its own tongue. A garbled yip that dragged on too long, ending in this low moan that made my guts twist. Jess froze, Spam still stuck on the end of his fork. His eyes met mine across the fire. "You hear that?" he asked, voice low. I nodded, didn't say a word. We both listened, waited, nothing else. Just that thick, heavy silence after. Now we'd both hunted these woods 100 times before. We knew what the wildlife sounded like, and that, whatever it was, didn't fit. "Maybe it's sick," Jess mumbled, trying to brush it off. "Rabid or something." I wanted to believe that. God help me. I wanted to. We tossed some more wood on the fire, kept it burning high, made nervous jokes, pretended everything was fine. But from that moment on, the woods didn't feel like they were ours anymore. Later, much later, must have been well past 2, I woke up. At first I didn't know why. My tent was dark, the fire out, everything dead silent. Then I heard it. Crunch, crunch. Slow, steady footsteps, moving through the leaves just outside. I laid still, holding my breath, hand slipping down to the knife tucked by my hip. I thought maybe Jess had gotten up to take a leak, but the steps weren't right. They didn't sound like a man walking, too light, too careful, like someone or something was trying not to be heard. The steps circled the tents, once, twice, then stopped, right outside my door. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Then it spoke, my voice. "Hey, buddy," it said. "Come on out, look at this." The words were right, but the tone was wrong. Flat, hollow, like someone who knew the shape of speech but not the meaning. I didn't move, didn't answer. For a long time, nothing happened. Then the thing shuffled off, slow and clumsy, like it didn't know how to use its legs properly. I laid there till the first grey light of dawn crept into the trees, knife clutched so tight in my hand, my knuckles locked up. When I finally unzipped my tent and stepped out, Jess was already up, standing by the dead fire. He looked like hell. Dark circles under his eyes, face pale as a sheet. "You heard it too," he said. Not a question, just the awful truth laid bare between us. We packed up camp without a word. Didn't even eat. Just threw our gear in the truck and peeled out of there. But here's the thing. As we were leaving, driving too fast down that narrow dirt track, Jess slammed on the brakes. There, standing dead center in the road about 50 yards ahead, was a deer. Or what I thought was a deer. It was too tall. Its legs were too long, joints bent backward, like broken twigs. Its eyes, they weren't deer eyes, they were human, and they were staring right at us. You boys ever hear a sound that just didn't belong? I ain't talking about the usual noises you get out here. Twigs snapping, critters rustling in the underbrush, maybe a coyote barking way off in the distance. Nah, I mean a sound that worms its way straight down your spine. A sound that makes every hair on your arm stand up stiff. Tells you something out there ain't natural. That's how it started for me. 15, maybe 16 years ago now. Up north near Wolf Creek. About 10, 12 miles from where we're sitting tonight. It was supposed to be a simple hunt. Me and my buddy Jess took a few days off work, loaded up the truck, drove deep into the woods. November chill in the air. That time of year when the trees stand naked and the nights get mean. We were after a buck Jess had spotted a week before. Claimed it was the biggest damn thing he'd ever laid eyes on. Swore up and down it was a trophy buck. Antlers wide as a man's outstretched arms. Jess was obsessed. Wouldn't shut up about it the whole ride out. We made camp in a little clearing, tight to the tree line. Nothing fancy. 2 tents, a ring of stones for the fire, some logs dragged over for sitting. I remember Jess trying to fry up a can of Spam in this busted old skillet, swearing under his breath because he kept losing pieces into the flames. We laughed, passed a bottle back and forth, talked about nothing important. The woods were loud that night, frogs croaking near the creek, wind hissing through the pines, normal sounds, comforting sounds, until they weren't. It was maybe around 11 when it changed. We were sitting close to the fire, trying to squeeze out the last bit of warmth before calling it a night, when we heard it. Off in the trees, it sounded kind of like a coyote, but wrong. Too deep. Too wet, if that makes any sense. Like a dog choking on its own tongue. A garbled yip that dragged on too long, ending in this low moan that made my guts twist. Jess froze, Spam still stuck on the end of his fork. His eyes met mine across the fire. "You hear that?" he asked, voice low. I nodded and didn't say a word. We both listened, waited, nothing else. Just that thick, heavy silence after. Now we'd both hunted these woods 100 times before. We knew what the wildlife sounded like, and that, whatever it was, didn't fit. "Maybe it's sick," Jess mumbled, trying to brush it off. "Rabbit or something." I wanted to believe that. God help me, I wanted to. We tossed some more wood on the fire, kept it burning high, made nervous jokes, pretended everything was fine. But from that moment on, the woods didn't feel like they were ours anymore. Later, much later, must have been well past 2, I woke up. At first, I didn't know why. My tent was dark, the fire out, everything dead silent. Then I heard it crunch, crunch, slow, steady footsteps moving through the leaves just outside. I laid still, holding my breath, hand slipping down to the knife tucked by my hip. I thought maybe Jess had gotten up to take a leak, but the steps weren't right. They didn't sound like a man walking. Too light, too careful, like someone or something was trying not to be heard. The steps circled the tents, once, twice, then stopped, right outside my door. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Then, it spoke, my voice. "Hey, buddy," it said. "Come on out, look at this." The words were right, but the tone... God, the tone was wrong. Flat, hollow, like someone who knew the shape of speech, but not the meaning. I didn't move, didn't answer. For a long time, nothing happened. Then the thing shuffled off, slow and clumsy, like it didn't know how to use its legs properly. I laid there till the first grey light of dawn crept into the trees. Knife clutched so tight in my hand, my knuckles locked up. When I finally unzipped my tent and stepped out, Jess was already up, standing by the dead fire. He looked like hell. Dark circles under his eyes, face pale as a sheet. "You heard it too," he said, not a question. Just the awful truth laid bare between us. We packed up camp without a word, didn't even eat. Just threw our gear in the truck and peeled out of there. But here's the thing, as we were leaving, driving too fast down that narrow dirt track, Jess slammed on the brakes. There, standing dead center in the road about 50 yards ahead, was a deer, or what I thought was a deer. It was too tall. Its legs were too long, joints bent backward like broken twigs. Its eyes, they weren't deer eyes, they were human. And they were staring right at us. You ever have someone say your name, but it doesn't feel like a person said it? Like the words don't carry warmth? Just wait? That's what happened the first time it used my father's name. I'd been keeping quiet about what happened. Not out of shame, out of fear. Like if I talked about it too loud, it might come back. Like saying its name would open the door wider. But the door was already open. A year had passed since Jess vanished. I'd traded my rifle for a second lock on the apartment door. Spent my nights watching TV with the volume low and the curtains tighter than a clenched fist. I'd started seeing a therapist. He thought I had PTSD. I let him think that. Maybe I even hoped he was right. I never mentioned Jess, never mentioned it. Just told him I saw something in the woods once and it stuck with me. Then, one night, around 2 a.m., I heard someone walking in the hallway outside my apartment. Nothing strange. People lived there. You hear noises, but this was different. It stopped outside my door, then knocked. 4 times. I froze. Same rhythm, same weight. Like it knew. I stood up, crept over, didn't breathe. I looked through the peephole. No one. But there was a sound, a whisper. So faint I almost thought I imagined it. "Harold." I jerked back like I'd been burned. That wasn't my name. That was my father's name. Dead 20 years. Nobody called me that, not even once. Only he ever did. Back when I was a kid, he'd say, "You're Harold's boy, ain't you?" when we were out hunting. The voice outside the door was low, gravelly, wrong, but somehow it still knew. "Harold's boy. Come here." I didn't move. I stood there for hours, hand shaking on the doorknob, until sunrise bled through the blinds and the hallway creaked empty again. I started dreaming after that. Dreams that didn't feel like mine. I'd be standing in the woods, barefoot, wearing my father's old hunting vest, staring at something crouched just past the tree line. Couldn't see it, but I knew it was watching me. Sometimes it spoke. Sometimes it wore his face. Not the way I remembered him. Smiling with a can of beer, sleeves rolled up, face sunburned from a day outside. No, this face was pale and too still. The mouth moved, but the eyes didn't blink. It would reach out to me with fingers too long and say, in his voice, "You're mine now, boy." Then I'd wake up soaked in sweat, nails dug into my palms. I started looking into things, legends, folklore. I didn't want to, but I had to. My sanity felt like it was hanging on a frayed thread. Skinwalkers, they called them. In some stories, they're witches who wear skins and steal voices. In others, they're things older than memory. Shapeshifters that take what they want and leave hollow things behind. But the thing that stuck with me most? They choose you. You don't summon them. You don't cross paths by accident. They see something in you. A crack. And they crawl through it. It got bolder after that. Started showing up on reflective surfaces. Not visibly, but I could feel it watching me when I passed a mirror. I'd catch my own face lingering too long in the glass, mouth twitching just a little offbeat, eyes just a little too still. Once I swear my reflection smiled when I wasn't. I smashed every mirror in the apartment that night. Thought it would help. It didn't. That same week, I found a dead deer on my porch, laid out like a gift, perfectly scented. Legs splayed open, belly torn wide. But here's the thing. There wasn't a drop of blood. Anywhere. Not in the body, not on the wood, not on the steps. Like it had been drained. And inside, where the guts should have been, was a Polaroid. One of me. Taken through the window while I slept. That was the night I tried to leave. I packed what I could carry, got in my truck, and started driving. Didn't know where. Just away. I made it maybe 60 miles before the truck started stalling. Dashboard flickering. Radio spitting static and little bursts of voices. My voice. Old conversations. Distorted. Repeating back at me. Pass me the rifle. Jess, I swear it looked right at me. You hear that? Then the engine died. In the middle of nowhere. No bars, no lights. Just me and a road that felt like it was folding in on itself. I sat there, clutching the wheel, and I swear the night bent around me. Like the trees leaned closer. Like the dark was listening. Then, in the mirror, I saw it again. Not full on. Just a glimpse. A figure standing in the middle of the road behind me. Too tall. Arms too long. Head cocked to one side like it was curious. It didn't move. I blinked, and it was gone. Eventually the truck started again. No explanation. I drove until the sun came up and never looked back. That was 6 years ago. I moved again. Changed names. Got off the grid as best I could. Bought a trailer and parked it way out in the hills. I got cameras, dogs, guns. Hell, I even buried a ring of salt around the property like one of those old stories said. But deep down, I know it doesn't matter. Because it already has my scent. It already knows my name. And worse, it knows my father's too. I guess the real reason I'm telling you all this now, out here, around this fire, is because I know it's close again. I can feel it in my bones, the way my dad used to say he could feel a storm coming. The dogs won't stop whining. The woods are too quiet. You notice that? No crickets, no owls, no wind, just us. And the dark, listening. I didn't bring you out here for fun. Not really. I told myself I missed camping, that I missed company. But the truth is, I didn't want to be alone tonight, because it started knocking again. 2 nights ago. 4 knocks. Heavy. Back door. Last night. Front door. And earlier this morning, when I left to come meet you guys, there was something carved into the side of my truck. Just 3 words. Not yet yours. And now, sitting here, telling you all this, I realized maybe I was wrong to run. Wrong to hide. Maybe it wasn't waiting to take me. Maybe it was wearing me down first. You see, it doesn't just hunt like a beast. It waits like a man. You remember that time earlier tonight when I stepped away to take a leak? I lied. I went to check the tree line. There were tracks. Not boot prints, not animal prints either, something in between. Barefoot. But the toes were wrong. Long. Split at the ends like cracked hooves. They circled our camp twice, and right near my tent. It left a gift. A photo, an old one, me about 12 years old, in the woods with my dad. Only, my dad's face had been scratched out, and written over the photo, in the same spidery handwriting from the notes, were 3 words. He's here now. It doesn't forget, doesn't forgive, and it doesn't just want to kill. It wants to be. That's what I figured out too late. The longer it stalks you, the more it learns. The more of you it wears. First it was Jess's voice, then my father's name, and now it knows me. Knows how I talk, how I think, how I breathe when I lie, the way I laugh when I'm scared, the stories I tell when I want people to like me. That's why I need you all to listen carefully. If, at any point tonight, you hear me call your name from the woods, if you wake up and hear me whisper from outside your tent, if I step away from this fire and 5 minutes later I come back acting a little off, too quiet, too cheerful, voice a little too smooth. You don't let me sit down again, you don't ask questions, you don't wait for proof, you shoot me, burn the body, salt the ground. Because I swear on everything I have left, if you hear me, it's not me. I know how this sounds. I know you're all sitting there thinking, this is a joke, right? Just some spooky fireside story? Hell, I'd want to believe that too. But you can feel it, can't you? The way the trees are leaning. The way the shadows move just a little when no one's looking directly at them. The way your skin's starting to itch beneath your coat. It's here, right now, and it's listening. You might not see it tonight, might not even hear it, but one of you already caught its eye. Maybe it was something you said, or the way you looked into the woods a little too long. Or maybe it just liked the sound of your voice when you laughed. You'll feel it soon, like being watched, like walking through a dream where the air's too thick and the sky presses down too low, like hearing your name whispered from across the room when you know you're alone. And when it starts knocking, don't open the door, don't answer the voice, don't look at it, no matter what face it wears. I used to think it was a spirit, a curse, something ancient and buried in blood and myth. But now I think it's older than that. I think it's a hunger, something that saw what it was to be human and decided it wanted to try. And when it picks you, it doesn't just come once, it stays, years if it has to, and it takes pieces, one memory at a time, one word, one smile, one scream, until there's nothing left of you that's truly yours. And the worst part? When it finally steps into your skin, no one else knows the difference. I'm telling you this because I can feel it circling me again, just like it did with Jess. It's so close now, and I think I'm out of time. So I need you all to promise me something. If I disappear, don't look for me. If I call you, don't answer. If you find me, but I'm too calm, or smiling too wide, or telling you how safe you are out here, burn me. Whatever it wears next, whatever mask it pulls over the bone, it won't stop with me. It'll sit by your fire, laugh at your jokes, and wait. You hear that? Out there, in the dark, it just knocked. We were deep in the heart of the outback, far from anything resembling civilization. There's something unsettling about the Wolf Creek area. You can feel the land watching you, like it's alive in a way that isn't natural. I've hunted all over the world, but nothing prepares you for this place. The heat, the dry air that chokes your throat, the endless stretches of dead scrubland where even the birds don't bother. This isn't the kind of place you wander into on a whim. And I knew that. I should have known better. I'd been tracking a buck, a big one. Heavy antlers and a coat so thick you'd think it was a bloody moose. But it wasn't the buck that bothered me. Not at first. It was the trail. It didn't make sense. The tracks, yes, but it was the way they led into a patch of land so desolate that no animal would willingly go there. It's the kind of place where your instinct says, turn back, long before your legs do. But I was stubborn. That's what hunters do. We chase. We ignore the gut feeling that warns us. And this time, I ignored it. I'd been out in the field for a few days, and the weather had turned against us. The heat that had been unbearable at noon had faded, but the dry air left everything feeling brittle, like it might crack at any moment. The kind of place where you expect to see ghosts. I came across the first sign when I noticed a scrape on a tree. Not a normal one either. I've seen a lot of animal signs in my years, but this one, it was too clean, too deliberate. Something had torn through the bark in a way that didn't make sense for a claw or antlers. I could feel my skin prickling, but I just kept moving. A few miles in, I found something worse, a fresh patch of blood. Not from the buck I was chasing. No, this was different. It was too dark, too thick. And the smell, it was like rotten meat, but off. The kind of scent you don't forget once it hits your nose. My stomach churned. It was too thick to be from a deer, the way it pooled on the ground, the smell of decay. I had an uneasy feeling that something was wrong, something I couldn't quite name. I knelt down, studied the blood, and then noticed something worse. Tracks leading away. They were wide, uneven, not the tracks of any animal I knew. That's when I heard it. The first call. Soft at first, just a whisper of a voice, but I recognized it. It was my partner Greg, the guy I'd been hunting with for the past 2 weeks, but he wasn't anywhere nearby. The call echoed again, this time louder, more urgent. He was calling my name right out in the open, like he needed help. "Greg," I called, scanning the horizon. Nothing but red dirt and twisted scrub. I called again, but there was no reply, just the wind tugging at my jacket. The call came again, though, this time sharper, more desperate. "You hear me, Greg?" I muttered under my breath, trying to shake off the chill creeping into my bones. My heart sank. I started moving faster, running through the dry brush, calling back to him. But there was no answer, just the wind and the crack of twigs beneath my boots. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the desolate land. I knew Greg would never let me out of his sight like this, not if he was alive. Something was off. I felt it deep in my gut. Then, the call came again, this time clearer, too clear. Greg wasn't calling from the trail ahead of me. He was behind me. I spun around, my breath tight, but there was nothing. Just the endless stretch of desert and the way the heat shimmers above the earth. I felt like I was being toyed with, like something was trying to lure me deeper into the wild. I don't know why I didn't turn back then. Maybe it was pride. Or maybe I just didn't want to admit to myself that something wasn't right. That's the problem with hunting in these parts. You get stubborn. You think you know better. You tell yourself there's an explanation for everything, even when there isn't. But as I pressed on, the feeling of being watched got worse. The hairs on my neck stood up, and I could feel my heart racing, each beat reverberating in my chest. It was like the land itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. I scanned the area around me. but all I saw were the same twisted trees and cracked earth. Then I saw it. A figure, off in the distance, standing motionless under the pale light of the sinking sun. It was tall, too tall, and even though I couldn't make out the details, something about the shape was wrong. It wasn't human. It couldn't be. I froze. My hand went to the rifle slung across my back, but my fingers were numb. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The thing in the distance didn't move, but I could feel its eyes on me, burning into me, as though it was waiting for me to make the first move. It was the way it stood that unsettled me most. It wasn't just a man in the distance. It was wrong. The shape of it was too thin, too long. The arms stretched unnaturally, like it was trying to imitate something but couldn't quite get it right. Then it moved. Not quickly, but in an almost fluid, unsettling way. It shifted, turning its head, and for a brief, horrifying moment, I thought I saw its eyes. Too big, too dark, with no whites, just black, reflecting the dying light. And that's when I knew I wasn't alone. I didn't stick around to find out what it wanted. It wasn't until I was a few miles back from where I'd seen that thing that I started to calm down. The shadows were longer now, creeping into the valley, and the air was cooler. I told myself it was just a trick of the light. A mirage. Something my eyes had invented after days, under the relentless sun. But deep down I knew that wasn't it. I knew what I'd seen. I kept walking, telling myself to stay sharp, that Greg was out there somewhere. I'd find him. That's what we do. Hunters. We find things. We track them down. But the further I walked, the worse I felt. The feeling of being watched, it never left. It only grew stronger. Every rustle of the wind felt like someone just behind me. Every creak of a branch felt like a step, like something or someone was moving with me. When the sun finally dipped below the horizon, I thought about making camp. I wasn't far from the others, but the place felt too exposed, too vulnerable. Every instinct in me screamed to keep moving, to get the hell out of there, but I didn't listen. I pitched the tent and set up camp, but sleep never came. Every noise kept me wide awake, listening, waiting. The first sound came around midnight, the snap of a twig from the edge of the camp. I froze. It was too close, too deliberate. My rifle was by my side in an instant, the weight of it solid and reassuring in my hands. "Greg?" I whispered, my voice catching in my throat. My heart was hammering in my chest. No answer, just the wind, whispering through the dry brush. I gripped the rifle tighter, trying to make out anything moving in the darkness. The air smelled like dust, the scent of something old, ancient, and forgotten. The kind of place that felt haunted even when it was silent. Then, another noise. This time, a low, guttural growl. Not animal, not human, just wrong. I didn't hesitate. I unzipped the tent flap and crept outside, rifle aimed straight ahead. The moonlight gave everything an eerie glow, casting long shadows and making the desert seem alive. I could hear breathing, slow and deep, coming from the far side of the camp, but I couldn't see anything. I moved toward it, my every step making the dry earth crack beneath me. "Greg!" I called out again, but my voice wavered. Then, out of the shadows, something moved. A figure, tall and thin, almost the same shape I'd seen earlier. But this time, it was closer. It stood upright like a man, but didn't move like one. It swayed gently, the faintest of sounds coming from it. The kind of sound you make when you're trying to imitate something, but can't quite get it right. I could hear its feet dragging through the dirt, its breath shallow and strained, like it was copying someone, but it was failing. It spoke, but it wasn't Greg's voice. Not exactly. It was twisted, like something had tried to pull the sound out of a human throat but couldn't quite manage it. "Help me," Please. I'm lost." The voice cracked, low and strained, but it sounded like Greg. The tone was so close to his, the inflection in the words so right, it nearly made me fall for it. Almost. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Something in my gut told me it was wrong. It was too wrong. It wasn't him. I'd seen Greg die, or at least I thought I had. But this thing was wearing his voice like a mask. I aimed the rifle at the figure, my finger tight on the trigger. "Who are you?" My voice came out harsh, almost a growl. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I couldn't let the fear take over. "Show yourself!" The thing swayed again, its head jerking toward me, but it didn't move closer. Instead, the ground shifted beneath it. I heard a snapping sound, and the figure bent, its arms stretching out unnaturally, like it was trying to reach something just out of its grasp. And then it was gone. 1 second it was there, the next it vanished into the night, like it was swallowed whole by the desert. I didn't hear it move, didn't hear anything. The air was dead still, like the whole world had stopped breathing. I was left alone again, the rifle still raised, heart racing, but I couldn't move. I stood there in the dark, the cold desert air biting at my skin. The sound of my breathing was the only thing I could hear, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched from every direction. I couldn't stay here. The fire had long since burned out, and the shadows seemed to be closing in around me. I grabbed what gear I could, slung it over my shoulder, and started walking. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care anymore. I just needed to get out. But the sounds followed me. Soft whispers, like the wind carrying voices, the rustle of leaves moving where there were no leaves. And always, that feeling, the one you get when someone is staring at the back of your neck. The thing wasn't done with me. I thought I was losing my mind. That's the only explanation I had at the time. I mean, I'd been out in the bush long enough to know the dangers of isolation, the way the desert can twist your thoughts. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there, something following me. I'd been walking for hours, hoping to get back to the others, hoping that maybe, just maybe, I'd stumbled far enough away from whatever that thing was. I tried telling myself it was just my nerves, the heat, the lack of sleep. But deep down, I knew. I wasn't alone. The desert wasn't like it used to be. The night had shifted. It had become something else. The air felt heavier, more suffocating, as if something invisible was wrapping around my chest, squeezing. The usual sounds of the night had stopped, and in their place, there was only silence. And that silence was worse than anything. I kept moving, dragging my feet across the dry earth. My mind was foggy, my body exhausted, but my instincts were still sharp. Sharper than ever. The hunter in me had taken over, and it told me that if I wanted to survive, I needed to get the hell out of there. It wasn't enough to just outrun whatever was following me. I had to fight back. That's when I decided to set a trap. I know what you're thinking. Traps only work if you're dealing with something predictable, something you can read. But whatever this thing was, it wasn't predictable. It didn't move like an animal, didn't act like one. But it had followed me for miles, mimicking voices, mimicking Greg, and that gave me an edge. The creature, whatever it was, had to have some kind of pattern, a way of thinking, of behaving, and I wasn't about to let it pull me around like a puppet. I'd seen its movements, the way it swayed and shifted, the way it didn't quite walk like a human. But I also knew something else. It was intelligent, too intelligent. And if I could get it to focus on something, anything, then maybe, just maybe, I could catch it off guard. I found a narrow ravine, the kind of place where the wind whips through and leaves no scent behind. A perfect spot for an ambush. I started by using my own tracks, looping them back on themselves, making them as fresh as I could. I used a few scraps of gear, pieces of fabric from my jacket, some of Greg's old camping supplies, to make it look like I'd circled back, like I was headed straight for the creature's position. I didn't know if it would work. Hell, I didn't even know if it would show up again, but something told me it would. I set myself up in the shadows, trying to keep my breathing steady, keeping my eyes on the area where I'd last seen it. Time stretched on, the minutes dragging by as I waited, the air thick with the smell of dust and something worse. Something rotten, like the earth had swallowed something dead and kept it there to rot. And then I heard it, a crack of a twig, a faint shuffle in the sand. My heart leapt into my throat, but I didn't move. Not yet. The creature was close. I could feel it. It was circling me, just out of sight, waiting for me to make the first move. I didn't flinch. I kept still, every muscle in my body taut like a coiled spring. I waited, breath held, rifle at the ready. The footsteps came closer. Slow, calculating. I couldn't tell if it was trying to be quiet or if it was just savoring the moment. The thing had a rhythm, a strange, almost methodical way of moving, like it knew the game. Then the voice came again. "Help! Help me!" It was low, almost a whisper, but it carried across the ravine, reaching deep into my gut. My heart slammed against my ribcage, and for a brief moment, I nearly lost myself to the voice of Greg, number not Greg. I knew that. It was trying to lure me just like before, but now it was worse. It was clearer, more desperate. I fought the urge to look, to move, to do anything. It was using Greg's voice, but the creature didn't sound like Greg. It was like an echo, a mimicry of someone you loved, twisted and warped. It was playing with me. I knew it wanted me to move. It wanted me to reveal myself. It wanted me to make a mistake. But this time, I wasn't going to fall for it. The moment I saw movement at the edge of the ravine, I acted. I sprang from my hiding spot, rifle raised, but by the time I took my first step, the creature was already gone. There was no sound of it running. It just vanished, as though the earth had swallowed it whole. And then I heard something else. A low growl, not far away. A human growl. A noise that could have come from Greg, but I knew it wasn't him. It wasn't anything human. I turned, heart in my throat, and caught a flash of movement in the corner of my eye. A figure running in the opposite direction. I fired. Once. Twice. Nothing. It was gone. The shots had hit nothing but air. The silence returned, suffocating, as though the land itself had held its breath. The wind had picked up, and the land felt like it was closing in around me. The once vast, open expanse of the Wolf Creek area now seemed to be shrinking, as if the earth itself were conspiring against me. Every direction I turned, I felt it watching, waiting. The creature was toying with me. I had no doubt about it now. It wasn't just following me, it was studying me, learning from every step I took, every reaction I had. It knew how I moved. It knew how I thought. I didn't know if it was the heat or lack of sleep, or if it was the sheer terror of what I'd seen that day. But I could feel myself slipping. I wasn't thinking clearly anymore. I wasn't just trying to survive. I was becoming obsessed with figuring out how to kill it, to stop it from getting any closer. But no matter what I tried, it always seemed to be one step ahead. The sun had set hours ago, and I was back in the same ravine I'd tried to escape from earlier. I should have kept moving, should have kept going toward the others, but I couldn't. I was drawn back here, like a moth to a flame, the pull of the creature's presence too strong. There was no logic in it, no reason, just instinct. I had to end this, one way or another. The rifle felt heavy in my hands, the weight of it like a constant reminder that I was alone out here, with nothing but my wits and this damn weapon to defend myself. I crouched low, moving slowly through the brush, every step careful, calculating. If it was going to come for me, I needed to be ready. Then I heard it, a soft laugh. It wasn't human. It wasn't anything that should have been alive. The sound scraped against my nerves, sending a chill up my spine. It was close, closer than I wanted it to be. I turned around, rifle raised, and there it was. Not a shadow, not a movement, but the thing itself. It stood in front of me, framed by the dying light of the moon. Its tall, unnatural form, a silhouette of pure terror. The thing that had been following me, that had worn Greg's voice, that had imitated every sound it needed to survive. It stood there, its face blank, an unholy emptiness where eyes should have been. Its arms stretched too long, too far, and its mouth, God, its mouth opened wide, too wide, impossibly wide, revealing teeth like a predator, but not a normal predator. These teeth were jagged, twisted, like they'd been made for tearing through flesh, through bone. I didn't think, I acted, I fired. Once, twice, 3 times. The shots rang out in the still air, echoing through the ravine. But the thing didn't move. It didn't flinch. It just stood there, taking the bullets and the wounds. They didn't even bleed. They didn't do anything. The creature just looked at me with that blank, hollow expression. And in that moment, I knew. It wasn't flesh I was dealing with. It wasn't bone. It wasn't human. The thing started to laugh again, but this time it was worse. The sound was so wrong, so distorted, like a chorus of voices layered on top of each other, each one twisted into something monstrous. "You think you can kill me?" It hissed, its voice too many tones at once, each one grating on my eardrums. I didn't wait. I ran. My heart hammered in my chest, and I could feel the adrenaline surge through my veins. The rifle was useless, so I dropped it. I didn't care. I just needed to get out. The creature's laughter followed me, echoing in my ears, filling the air, like it was everywhere and nowhere at once. It was inside my head now, not just a noise, but a presence. I didn't look back. I couldn't. But I could hear it moving, hear it chasing me. Faster now, its steps heavy on the ground. The sound of its breath like a growl that grew louder with every step I took. The landscape was a blur. The earth seemed to shift beneath me, rocks and sand giving way to nothing but endless darkness. My feet stumbled over uneven ground, and I could feel myself getting slower, my body breaking down under the strain. My lungs burned with each breath, but I couldn't stop. Not now. Not when I was so close. And then I saw it, the campfire. My mind didn't fully register it at first, but when I saw the flickering light in the distance, I felt a surge of hope. I wasn't far from where the others had been. Maybe I could get to them. Maybe they could. But then the growl came again. It was right behind me now. I didn't look back. I just ran. I ran with everything I had. Every last ounce of strength pushing me forward. I broke through the brush and stumbled into the camp, panting, my heart slamming in my chest. I saw shadows, figures moving around the fire. I couldn't make sense of it, too blurry, too fast. But then I heard a voice. My voice, not Greg's, not the creature's, mine. "Help! Help me!" I screamed, hoarse, desperate. And then I heard it, the laughter. So close. It was right there, just behind me. It had followed me. The fire flared, casting long shadows, but when I turned, it wasn't there. It was gone. The creature was still out there, somewhere. I don't know if it's hunting me still, or if it's just waiting, watching, until I make the mistake of thinking it's gone. But one thing I know for sure, the Wolf Creek area isn't just a place. It's something else entirely. It's alive in a way that no man, no animal, no thing should ever be. And the worst part, I know it's still out there, and it knows my name.